This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by Isotope, Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Atom Audio, Spectra 1964, and Picker. In fact, you're hearing my voice right now recorded through a Spectra 1964 STX 100 mic pre and mixed with Isotope, Ozone, and RX on Atom Audio monitors and headphones. Grab my free mixing course at Mixmaster Bundle with the link in the show notes below. And please make sure to visit our fantastic sponsors also in the show notes and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel because it's a great way to help support this show. Now get ready to rock.
He knew we were a little sloppy and rough around the edges, and he recorded it like that, you know, and like we left the mistakes in there. And if anything, like there would be times where I'd be cutting a solo and I'd have a little flub and he'd be like, "That's it, we're keeping it." And I'd be like, no, I just want to do one more. And he'd be like, "Nope, on to the next thing," you know, just wouldn't. And then he would usually pick the one that had the little flub in it. That's what gave it more character. And I'm kind of like that too with even vocals. Like, you know, when it comes to cutting vocals with an artist, I'll go for the take that has the right energy over the one that's totally correct, technically speaking, you know.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Dreaming of a career in audio or the entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs where you'll learn on professional-grade gear with industry pros, learning through real projects, not just lectures. Explore studio production, live sound, audio for film, and a whole lot more. Or take the entertainment business program to learn about contracts, promotion, and more. With diploma, associate, and bachelor's programs, there's a path for you. Book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Howdy, Rockstars. It's your host, Lid Shaw. Welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Lincoln Parish, founding guitarist of the Grammy-nominated rock band Cage the Elephant from Nashville, Tennessee. After years of success on the road and in the studio with the band, Lincoln left in 2013 to focus full-time on producing and songwriting. From his Nashville studio, Talk Box Rodeo, he's working with artists like Lilly Hiatt, Alicia Blue, and Carrollton, with music landing in shows like Grey's Anatomy and Lucifer. Lincoln brings a great perspective on what it's like going from the band and the stage to producing records in the studio. So I'm excited to have him here. I think we don't remember if we met in the past, but we'll find out because I actually did a session with Cage the Elephant many years ago in my Bonnaroo studio. But please welcome Lincoln Parish to Recording Studio Rockstars. Lincoln, my man, are you ready to rock, dude?
I think so. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to do this.
Yeah, man, my pleasure, man. I'm excited to have you here. And it was cool. We met at, what was it? It was the
Picker launch party.
Picker launch party, right? That's a cool app that is hopefully going to be on people's radar.
Yeah, everybody should go check that out. It's a PICKR. And the best way I can think to describe it is like the Airbnb for musicians.
Right, right.
So you can outsource, or you can rent a studio, you can rent a room, you can, hire players, mixers, producers, whatever.
Yeah, it does things. Doesn't it also do things like, if you're trying to figure out who played on a record, you might be able to
I think it
learn
links
that
to
or
credits.
something like that.
So like if you're like, oh, I want to see who did this record and use that guy, then I think there's a way to source that.
Yeah, I always thought that would be really cool. Like, especially like on the upper level, it's even challenging there with credits and stuff like that, as you probably know. But traditionally, like, you could probably find out who played on a bigger record. But on the smaller stuff, where like people that you knew that were also in other studios making records on more of an indie level, I always thought it'd be so cool to just like, be able to check, who played drums on that one thing, and be like, oh, that was great.
Yeah. That's what I geek out on, like Apple Music now. Like if there's a song that I love, the the view credits thing, which some people don't plug it in on the more indie side.
Yeah.
But it is cool to be able to go see, oh, like I didn't realize that this guy wrote this song or this guy played on this.
Yeah, how deep do those credits go? They don't go very deep, do they? Did they show the musicians?
They show the musicians. I mean, if they've done it right, they show all the musicians, the writers, and the engineers, and the mixer, and the producer, and mastering, and even their assistants, and all that stuff.
That's cool.
So, especially on the major labels, end of things.
Yeah. There we go. I'm just trying to zoom this thing here. If you see me looking away, it's me just clicking buttons and zooming on things. Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I mean, we need to have credits come back.
Yeah.
We've been missing that.
Well, now that we don't have the physical CD, and the phone is the physical now.
Yeah. But, I will say, even with the CD, there was a lot of mystery around. Like,
right.
How was this record? Who did that? What's the name of that place?
I was the nerd who would look at it.
Yeah.
But I feel like not everybody was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally. Well, so give us some background into your story. Like, you're a guitar player, a guitarist.
Started off as a guitarist.
Yeah, how'd you go from like being interested in music to being in a successful rock band to now producing and
I had always
yourself?
Had a desire to play guitar ever since the age of like 5. My grandmother was like the pianist, organist in the church, and I would like get on stage and kind of strum along, and I wasn't playing chords, but I was just there. And then my parents had tried to get me guitar lessons, like I think at the age like 7. And I took from this older lady who taught me.
And this is in Tennessee?
This is in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Oh, in Bowling Green. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And she was trying to teach me, classical. I mean, even down to, she had the footstool, that whole thing. And practicing to a metronome, which that's great. But
is the footstool any good? Do we want to just get a footstool anyway, or is it only for classical?
I think it's just classical. yeah.
I was wondering about that.
But I took from her for like 6 months, and at 7 years old, it just didn't stick.
Right.
And then when I was probably like 9, got interest again. Same sort of thing. Took from another guy. He ended up being classical as well. So it was like rinse and repeat. I took for like 8-9 months. Just wasn't. I wanted to play rock and roll and like blues rock and that kind of. I wanted an electric guitar and distortion.
Yeah.
And
what were you listening to at that point that even made you want to do that?
Well, my first concert ever. Remember the band Audio Adrenaline?
I don't know.
They were like Christian rock.
Oh, right
like
on.
In that 95 to 97 movement. They played some like Crusade and Bowling Green at Western on the campus, and my parents like let me and my sister go, and that was the first time like seeing a Fender Strat and just like the way it shined off the stage and just loud guitars, and I was like, all right, I'm in.
I love that, dude. I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe a guitar as the way it shined off a stage.
Yeah, no, it was just sexy to me, you know, like so I was just like felt drawn to it, and then didn't touch a guitar for like years. And then when I was probably like 11, about to turn 12 or so, I was in my parents' attic, and I found this guitar that they got me that only had one string on it because everything else had popped off.
Nice.
And the neck's all messed up, and
it's even cooler.
And it was out of tune, but like I found it and I got it out, and I just sat down with it, and I just would start coming up with these like single note riffs that made sense to me. And then I went back to my parents, and I was playing ice hockey here in Nashville at the time, and also doing golf. So I was pretty involved in sports, and I was like, I really got the itch to like play guitar again.
And this was in the early 90s?
This would have been early 2000s, so like
early 2000s,
02,
okay, right.
About 02.
Did you ever hear the band, the Presidents of the United States of America?
Yeah.
POTUS, yeah. Those guys were all about the few strings on their guitars.
Were they?
Yeah, I think the guitar had 3 strings and the bass had 2.
Oh, wow. That's
so
even more than the Keith Richards.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You only had 1.
Yeah.
You were cooler than that.
Which probably makes sense with a lot of the Cage riffs, you know. But Yeah, so I basically begged my parents to sign me up for lessons again, and they were kind of like, all right, this is your last chance. Like, if you don't stick with it this time, like, that's it. And all your other hobbies are expensive too. So, like, you kind of got to pick one.
As a parent, that's fair. That's fair. At a certain point, you're like, we can afford to focus on what we can afford to focus on.
Yeah. And so, my mom called the music store. They were like, yeah, we got this guy and she kind of explained like my background of like what had happened with other teachers. She was like, we don't want a classical teacher. Like, we need,
right.
And there was this guy there named Bobby Baldwin, and he had been on the road with like the Doobie Brothers and Santana. He'd been out in LA for 20 years, had like moved back home and was giving guitar lessons at this local music store. And, he talked to my mom for a little bit that day, and he was like, look, if he really wants it, like, he's got to practice, and like, that's the main thing. And she's like, he says he really wants to do it this time. So anyway, they got me in with him. Me and him instantly hit it off. And I mean, he literally, he's passed since, but I always call him my second dad. He was such a mentor to me, and like, sort of taught me the things like, my dad's a doctor and not a musician. So like, he sort of taught me the things that only a musician could teach a musician.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So after about 6 months from like taking from him, he like pulled my like mom aside, and he was like, look, I think there's something here. Like, I'd like to like jump him up to an hour lesson, because I was just taking 30-minute lessons a week. And he goes, I don't do that for any of the other students. And
right on.
And he goes, I think if he really sticks with it, he's not going to have to work a real job the rest of his life. And
that's awesome. That's awesome.
And and he was a big part even once the band started, and kind of like guiding them through how that was all going to go. Anyway, so
how did the band start? So you're talking about Cage the Elephant,
right?
That was your was that you sort of essentially your first important band?
Important one, yeah. But I'd played in local, kids my age.
But you guys were playing together in Bowling Green.
Yeah. So basically, how we met was my old band opened up for their old band, which was called Perfect Confusion. And my band was called The Dirty Lie.
Nice.
I can't believe I just said that on air. Anyways, and we played this bar in Bowling Green, which I was only like 14 at the time, and the other guys, we were all like freshmen in high school.
Yeah.
And we played, and I was sort of like the band leader. Like, I think I was producing before I knew what producing was. I would be the one who'd be like in practice, like, hey, you sit out here, or like, hey, on the bass, why don't you go to eighth notes here, and that kind of thing. So we played the show, and after the show, Matt, the singer from Cage, came up to me, and he's like, hey, man, like, you're really good at guitar. And I was like, cool, like, thanks. And I've always been kind of super shy and introvert, and so I just kind of had my head down. I was like, oh, thanks, man, And
short hair or long hair?
I had like shaggy hair at the time, yeah.
Right on.
The shorter hair was my later in life
thing. And Rockstars, if you're listening to the podcast right now and you want to see what his hair looks like, come on over to YouTube where you can watch the podcast.
Yeah, there's a lot of, you can see all the phases of hairstyles.
There you go.
Yeah. And so like kind of left it at that. And then maybe like 2 months later, when this was back in the MySpace days, their band broke up. My band had just broken up, and they put out this Perfect Confusion at the time. It putting out this like MySpace sort of post, like looking for a lead guitarist, blah, blah, blah. Here's the influences.
Right.
Obviously, it was all up my alley. And so I sent them a message, and then they left me on red. Like, just didn't respond.
Oh, on red. Nice.
Yeah, because I was 15 at the time. So they're like, we're not going to let some 15-year-old in our band. And
I mean, we're getting deep into the story. I love it. You joined Cage
before it was even Cage.
Yeah. And then you guys played together for quite a while. And then you guys come down to Nashville, and does that sort of introduce you to the Nashville scene?
Yeah, we started just road dog in Nashville, where we were playing down here like every other weekend.
Yeah, what were some of the? Were you playing?
I mean, the End, all the 8x8s, all the what was the one at the basement?
New Faces.
New Faces
well, that
night.
was the starting bands.
And then
Mike Grimes, who owns the Basement in Basement East. He's Bowling Green.
Oh yeah. He's Bowling Green and Owensboro.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And then Tommy Womack also.
Yep. And the drummer from the Black Crowes, Steve Gorman's also from Bowling Green.
There you go. All right. Yeah, I guess that college town up there, and probably
there's just not much to do. So like
store.
Everybody plays music together, and and even like all my friends we were too young to get in the bars, we would just go hang out at each other's houses and start
bands.
Yeah, find some older dude to buy us beer at the gas station and sit and jam till we had to go home.
That's awesome.
And that's great. And I think that's how all these great, Foster and Lloyd came out of Bowling Green.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that Bill Lloyd came out of there.
My old teacher used to play with them. Bobby, he played with them as well.
And Radney.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I know his son Jack Foster is a great engineer.
Oh, nice.
Great engineer and producer. Well, cool. So you came to Nashville, and then you did the band thing for a while, and that took you into some studios, right? You got to experience making records that way. Was that sort of an introduction to it for you, or were you guys already demoing all your own stuff at first?
I'd been in studios before with other projects, but they were all kind of like, smaller project studios, like 500 a day kind of places. And then when Cage was getting going, we got hooked up with this guy from Murfreesboro who owns Sponge Bath Records, which I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I know Rick.
Yeah. Enough said. So he signed us to a deal, set on the back of Matt's truck outside of Windows on the Cumberland. We played our second show down there. He missed the show because Rick was always late, and the only reason he came was because this other A&R guy that he used to work for at Atlantic had called him and said, "I'm not going to be able to make it, but there's this band that I was really wanting to check out."
Yeah,
and so he weaseled his way over there and missed it, and then he was like, "Well, play me something." So we had just written "Ain't No Rest for the Wicked," so we played it for him on the back of this POS Mazda truck, and he basically signed us on the spot to this developmental deal.
Wow, that's a trip, man.
Then led to it's actually how I originally met Roger, Alan Nichols.
Yeah.
Because, through the Paramore connection and them working together. And then the next guy we met with was Jay Joyce.
Mm-hmm.
And from the first time we met Jay over at his house off Fleetwood, when he was still making records in his basement,
right.
It was just like, this is our guy. It just instantly clicked. We're like, he's more of a punk guy, the first meeting we had, it was just me, Matt, and Brad. So me and the singer and the rhythm guitar player. And we go in, and it's funny because Jay had this camcorder, this for a phone,
Right, totally.
So he had this camcorder, and he's like, "I want y'all to play me 3 of these new songs." And because the first night that I jammed with the band, we wrote 3 songs that night. And so we play these songs for him and on acoustic. And after the first or second one, Jay looks at me and he's like, "You need to play your guitar he goes it sounds too good." He's like, "You need to play you can barely reach the top strings." He's like it's too low. And so he was kind of telling me to sloppy it up more.
Interesting.
Kind of ironic.
Getting you to cut loose a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was one of the first. And then we met with him, and I think within 2 months of that first meeting, we were in the studio with him, and we cut the first album in 10
that
days.
was the studio that was in his house originally.
Yes.
And then now, before he moved across to, they've got
the Neon Cross.
The Neon Cross is the name of the studio. Yeah.
So we did the first 2 in the basement, and then we did the third one, Melophobia, in the church.
Rockstars, if you want the ultimate toolkit for your music, check out Complete 15 from Native Instruments. With 165 instruments and over 150,000 sounds to choose from, it is the most powerful creative tool in your studio. From Contact 8 to Massive X, Battery, and Guitar Rig 7 Pro, you've got everything you need to create in any genre. Pair that with Native Instruments control keyboards and machine hardware, and you get next-level integration that makes music creation fun, fast, and seamless. Head on over to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. That's cool. What's some stuff? I mean, those are great sounding records. You guys did some great stuff. So reveal to us.
Jason Hall as well.
Yeah. Jason, who's been on the show too. Really cool.
That was a great interview y'all did.
Thank you, man. He was fun to have over, and I ran into him not long ago, I think. Need to have him back. But one of the things that really got me excited were the way that Jason talked about how you guys would record those records, and just the unbridled kind of approach towards getting the sounds, being willing to use old tube mic pre's like the Ampex and dynamic mics, I was like, well, how do you get those kind of drum sounds? He's like, dynamic mics,
Yeah.
And, so I'd love to hear you talk about stuff you remember learning. Like when you first started recording, what stuck out to you as like, oh, this isn't how we usually do it. This is different.
I would say every record was very different in how we made them and how we wrote them.
Yeah.
The first one we came in, I mean, we didn't have time to really mess around.
So it was just like standard miking and or something like that. And just,
right? Jay had his things that, was it the Western Electric 639, that ribbon, that real trashy ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing some cool stuff with room mics and, that kind of thing. But it's funny, I've heard Jay say a lot, he's like, on that first album, he was like, the band was so full of piss and vinegar, he was like, I was just trying to stay out of the way so they didn't get in a fight. And a lot of that record just went super quick. It just sort of felt like we were in this haze and like,
right.
And then, that basement was so dark, when you'd come out, you were like, what's going on? And
it was a small studio, right? So like,
yeah, we cut
talking about room mics and stuff, but it's not like a big spacious room.
Oh no, we cut everything live except for like guitar overdubs and vocals. Yeah. So like on that first record, everything was a live take. I would overdub the solo, and then Matt would cut vocals separate, and that was pretty much it. And then
that's wild. And that one went on to do well.
Yeah. It's
and that had no Rest for the Wicked on it.
Yeah, No Rest for the Wicked, Back Against the Wall, In One Ear were like the singles off that one.
That's awesome. And so, in your experience, I mean, that was a important thing, to have something that broke out as a single like that, or have a couple that broke out as a single. That's kind of without that, it's hard to get to the second record as a signed label band, right?
Totally.
Especially
and we got signed in the UK first, so we went over there, lived in London for 2 years, and then came back, and then had to put the record out over here because we got signed to Jive over here, which was kind of an odd fit, but it worked.
Right.
And within like 6 to 8 weeks of it coming out in the US, it went #1, and that's when you could really start to see a change. And
yeah, so what did you experience as a member of a band that just went #1?
What
changed for you? What was the surprise for you?
I always say it's easier to see in hindsight than when you're doing it, because when you're doing it, it's just like, okay, it's Tuesday, or it's Wednesday and we got another show. But when I could tell something was happening was, we'd be playing these like 500 people clubs, and it was our first, after we moved back from the UK, we had done a bunch of van tours in the US before that, but when we moved back from the UK, our first tour was on a bus. And when we first started in the UK, we were playing for like the bartender and our tour manager, and then grew that in 2 years to headline in 2,000 to 3,000 people theaters on our own, doing like the academies and stuff over there. So then we came back over here, we're doing like these 300 to 500 people clubs. And, I think the change was like looking out the window of the bus and seeing like 150 people lined up at like 4:00 in the afternoon.
To get in. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, that's different. And then, people asking for autographs or things like that. Yeah. Sometimes on the inside, you don't really know, and the label and management was keeping us so busy that we really didn't have time to sit around.
This was after record number 1.
Yeah.
So you had your recording experience. It was pretty fast. So like you might have seen Jay do some stuff in the studio, but it was so quick you didn't absorb it in the same way that you do now as a practicing producer or an engineer.
Yeah, and like, right? On the first record, Jay was just, the key word was vibe.
Right.
We were just all about the vibe. We were like, the vibe's got to be right. And we would usually cut 3 to 5, usually about 5 takes of each song. And then we'd all take like a 10-minute break, sit back, listen to each one. And like, we'd all kind of take a vote on which one we felt had the best energy.
Yeah.
And the one that we wanted to like work off of.
Yeah.
And we tried a couple other things. Like we tried cutting it to tape, and then we tried Pro Tools, but we ended up picking the Pro Tools version on a blind test because
that's funny.
I think we just preferred the more hyped sound.
Yeah.
So the first record was so quick. It was sort of not get in and get out, but like, let's not waste any. We didn't really have time to experiment.
No, that's cool. I mean, and this podcast being focused on, the studio angle of it too. We'll get to that stuff as we talk about, move forward. So so you guys are out touring. I know that one of the things, I got 2 thoughts I wanted to share. One is, there's the idea of when you're in a band and you're out there and you've got a tour and you got to do all this stuff. Obviously, that doesn't leave you much room for messing around in a studio. You're gonna have to patiently wait for that to come back when you hit the studio. But also, even just like writing songs and like composing music for the next record, that can be a real challenge, right?
Yeah, we actually never wrote on the road. We just couldn't.
Yeah,
our priorities weren't in line necessarily back then either.
Right.
But yeah, we kind of took it all separately. Like we'd go out and tour and focus on that. And like, to be honest, between getting up and doing all the radio promo stuff, and then you get back for sound check, and then maybe you get a couple hours before the show.
Yeah, there's no time left.
Yeah, you eat, take a nap, and then show time, and then whatever after that.
Well, it's interesting too, because it presents a very different challenge from just deciding to go into studio and production, where you just get through that first 3-day record or whatever, and then here's the next 3-day record. So you're really focused on that. You had to be, you have to wait your turn a little more for the opportunities to really get to know the studio well.
Right.
Even for the Beatles, it probably took a long time before they were in Abbey Road for 6 months straight,
Yeah, and you start, and obviously as each record went on, the budgets got bigger, so that allowed us more time on each record to experiment.
Right. Did you guys go through that thing where you had the budget, so now you just started buying your own studio stuff?
I did.
You did. Right on.
I was the one.
Yeah, tell us that story.
I was always the gear nerd. So fast forward to when we started writing the third album,
and just to that writing point too, this is you guys would come back and then you'd say, we need a writing chapter.
Yeah.
We need quiet time for writing or something.
Yes. So like the second album, we convinced the label to rent us 2 cabins on the lake in Kentucky.
Oh, sweet.
For 2 weeks. And we went up there and wrote the album in 2 weeks.
2 weeks? You guys wrote the whole next album?
Yeah.
Wow.
We had a couple like starter things.
What are the challenges? I mean, the singer, remind me of the singer.
Matt.
Is Matt. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Matt. So was it in his nature to quickly come up with lyrics on the spot and that kind of thing? And is it in your nature to find it easy to come up with the guitar ideas?
Yeah, that's
it's
one
that
thing.
Good combo.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about Cage and the way that we wrote when I was in the band, which I think they have a different approach now, but was me and Matt, or Brad and Matt, or Titchener and Matt, the bass player, because he also played guitar too. We all might like come up with little ideas separately on the side, or 2 and 2 together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like no matter who brought in what idea, everybody in the band made their own parts.
Right.
So like everybody was contributing factor to the greater sound. So like I always say I felt like that's what made us somewhat unique and different was that
it gives you a original sound.
Yeah, we all had common ground of stuff we liked, but we also were all coming from 20 different areas of what influenced us, and we're always constantly changing like what we were into. And like once we moved to the UK, then we got exposed to like the post-punk Pixies and Pavement and all that stuff. So that's why the second record's very punk. And then I always say that everybody's like, well, the third record's real mid-tempo, and I was like, yeah, because we all made a little money and got houses and everybody got comfortable.
Well, and
it's hard to be pissed off and angsty, whenever,
right?
So,
fair.
But I think that's natural,
And it begs another question that I've talked about on the podcast a bit, which is this concept of like when I was down at Bonnaroo and I'd go to the big stage and stand there on the side of the stage and look down and watch a band play on the big stage, I started to realize that, the style of music that they're playing fit a big stage. So like it kind of occurred to me that a band's career can be this thing where the first songs you write might be small and intimate, a conversation like this, then it might be stuff that seems to work with a band in a smaller club. And then, when you start becoming U2 or whatever, it's like, of course, everything has to sound like a building outro because you have to play for 80,000 people,
Yeah, and
that's what works.
I actually take that approach with my production. Like when I'm working with always, especially if it's a more younger starting out artist, indie artist that I know is going to probably only have a 3 or 4 piece band that they're going to go on the road with. I'm not going to put a big string section on that album.
Right.
I mean, I could, but
I did.
And I've done it before too.
Yeah. And then the artist later told me, he's like, I'm just going to go make a folk record because that's what everybody's been hearing me do, and that's what they want to buy.
Yeah. I'm like, the record needs to be what the band can pull off live and still sell.
Which for me as a young producer was a tough thing to accept because I was like, but we did was so cool.
Yeah, you're like, and it's massive at the end, know. But and I think even Jay had that approach with us. Like, he knew we were a little sloppy and rough around the edges, and he recorded it like that.
Yeah.
And like we left the mistakes in there, and if anything, like there would be times where I'd be cutting a solo and I'd have a little flub, and he'd be like, "That's it, we're keeping it," and I'd be like, "No, I just want to do one more," and he'd be like, "Nope." On to the next thing, and like just wouldn't. And then he would usually pick the one that had the little flub in it, and and that's what gave it more character. And I'm kind of like that too with even vocals. Like, when it comes to cutting vocals with an artist, I'll go for the take that has the right energy over the one that's, totally correct, technically speaking. Because you can always nudge stuff or give it a little.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I find that,
or just leave it. I just did a record. This country band from Cleveland, we made an agreement we're not tuning any vocals.
Right on.
And it didn't tune.
So if you don't like it, sing it again.
Yeah, let's get it right on the front end.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I like to approach it. Is like do the heavy lifting on the front end, and then it makes everything else so much easier.
So you're sitting in the control room cutting vocals for that, and they're out there on the mic, and the vocals are an overdub or they're a live vocal?
Well, this record they were all live except for like 2 songs.
Okay, so in other words, if you didn't like the vocal, it's probably the band doing another take. In other words.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Because we kind of embraced the bleed on that record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say about it? I don't remember what I was going to say, but that's cool, man. I love hearing all these stories. So talk about going back into the studio, like talk about ending up at the Neon Cross and recording there and stuff that you guys are doing. Because I know that I'm guessing that at that stage you started to really understand. And plus you said when you guys were writing, you were acquiring the gear and you were starting to.
Oh yeah. So
you're beginning to understand how this stuff goes down, right?
Well, yeah, before that I had when I was 18, got my first place, a little townhome off West End I was renting, and had a little laundry closet with washer and dryer standing at one end.
Yeah.
And I put a little like office desk and put my Atom monitors
Awesome.
up, and that I still
right
rock to this
right
day. Those are at the Harvest Room studio that I'm in Midtown that I work out
cool.
of. So those are there, and then I have a B rig at my house that I mostly mix at the house now, and then I track at the studio in Midtown. Yeah, I had my Atoms, had a little Motu 828 interface, and I got a UA 2610. And that was my first like decent pre.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I would just, when I was off tour, I would just call anybody that I knew that was a songwriter or musician friend or whatever, and I'd just be like, "Hey, do you want to come over today and we'll mess around with something, and like,
yeah, that's a fun stage to be in.
And so like we'd come over and we'd like write a song, and then I would demo it out, and like it was really just a chance for me to mess around and try to figure it out, and I always tell people, like, people ask how I learned how to engineer now. I'm like, I learned by just doing it wrong. I said, and that's the best way. I said, I just tried a bunch of stuff, and like obviously I've got to be around great engineers like Jason, and even some of the people that I've gotten to work with on my own outside of that over the years. I've learned a ton from that. You just irreplaceable kind of stuff that every engineer has a different approach, and like you can choose and pick every little thing that you want, what you like what that guy does and what you don't like what he does, and kind of you hodgepodge it all into your own thing. And so yeah, I just say I did it wrong a lot.
Rock stars, are you ready to unlock the full potential of your mixes and masters? Then you need iZotope Ozone 12. This complete tool set gives you 20 pro modules, including the new bass control, unlimiter, and stem EQ, plus the IRC5 maximizer for loud, clean mixes and masters without distortion, including the new mastering assistant that guides, not decides, so you are always in control. Go to iZotope.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. What do you remember when you were working with Jay and Jason about, let me just start with guitar first, since that was your instrument. What were a couple of things that you picked up about how they recorded guitar that was like new? I guess if everything was new to you at that point, you might not have thought, oh, that's different. You might have just thought, well, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I never like asked too much about like signal chain stuff back then, because
or mics on your amp or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would go look. I could see it was usually like a BK5 and a 57, or just a 57.
Yeah, BK5. That's the RCA.
Yeah.
BK5. It's a ribbon. It's the ribbon that kind of looks like a 57.
Yeah, that was more the third album when I remember seeing that come around. Before that, it was more just a 57. And like the first album was just a 57 and my Bassman cranked. I wasn't even using any overdrive for.
Wow. What do you think about that? Like as a guitar player, guitar tones. I mean, have you grown like a really deep appreciation for the difference between distortion when you just one cable from guitar to amp and it's turned up versus pedals?
Oh yeah, I'm still very much a real amp guy.
Yeah.
I don't, and I think all the Kemper and Neural stuff is awesome. They sound great, and when I get in stuff to mix that I say I didn't do, a lot of times I'll ask for the DI and then the printed Neural or Kemper track.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, unless there's something I find technically wrong with, the print, I'd say 9 times out of 10 I go with what they had and just kind of EQ it.
Yeah.
That stuff's great. I just love real amps, and I love how reactive they are. I like how
they make you want to play, right?
Yeah, they don't work unless you work them.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, like, also just as somebody who appreciates distortion, haven't you noticed there's a quality to, like, I've had guitar players and bands come into the studio and they just set down their live pedal board automatically. I mean, it happens all the time. Right. And then, I learned to say, like, hey, you know what? Let's see if we can just skip that stuff and plug it in, and you turn it up, and then you hear it out of the speakers, and you're just like, oh my God, that sounds so much better sometimes.
Yeah. Jay told us, I remember, same thing on the first album, I bring in my pedal board, and he's like, we're just, he's like, just don't hit your distortion pedals. Because I had some octave and some delay stuff that I was doing and a couple other things, but he'd be like, yeah, just don't. He's like, distortion will just make it sound thinner.
Right.
So that's sort of when I learned that, like, if you can do it on the amp, which really you only get the chance to do that in the studio.
Right, because on stage you need much more control over things.
And you got the sound guy yelling at you. And,
for being too loud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but no, I love, all the little tabletops. I have a ton of little silver tone, magnetone, all the weird funky stuff. I always say, like, I got all the good stuff early on, and then after that it was always about finding the weird stuff. And,
right. Do you remember doing a shift from thinking that the big loud amps were what you wanted to discovering that the cool small ones were what you wanted in the studio because you could get more unique tones out of them and stuff?
Yeah. And I think my back too. But yeah, no, I just started falling in love with these little, and Angelo Petraglia kind of got me into those little amps. And I'd been over to his studio at his house, and he had all these cool little quirky things, and I was like, oh, okay. It's like, I need some of that.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I guess it depends on the styles of music you do. For the kind of like indie rock kind of, which I guess is a good description.
Yeah.
For Cage the Elephant, for example.
Totally.
And that, is born out of the kind of music that I always liked in playing in bands and being in college and stuff like that too, is there's always a quality of like, funky, interesting character, as opposed to like,
just a Marshall 800.
Yeah, just a big loud rock, hair metal band or metal band, which, to that point too, people who love metal and that sound are like, would probably respond with like, what are you talking about? There's like all this kind of subtle variation in those tones and everything. So it really is like just, which styles of music we like.
Yeah. I had a 5150 that was one of Eddie Van Halen's backups.
Oh, it really belonged to
him? It was. I got it from one of the head guys at Peavey back, because I had a deal with Buddha back in the day. And,
right on.
I actually just sold it like last year because
you're not using it.
Well, there's another guy in Siena recording studio where I work out of, and he works on more heavy stuff, and he had borrowed it for like a month, and he was like, man, if you ever want to sell this, I go, I've used that like once in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I go, if I ever need it, just let me borrow it, and I'll sell it to you.
You're smart, man. I could sell a lot of stuff if I had that attitude.
Yeah. And I typically don't sell gear, but I was like, it's kind of like a shirt that's been in your closet. If you haven't worn it in a year, then probably best to sell it.
Yeah.
And, and I know he's gotten so much more use out of it, so I'm just happy to see it get used.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, what about drums? Did you see anything when Jason was on the podcast, he talked about using dynamic mics on drums?
So I actually have the kit that we used on all 3 records. It's a early 80s Slingerland.
Oh, cool.
When they were still made in Nashville, which I want to say it's like maybe around 82.
Yeah.
Don't hold me to that, but I think it's somewhere around there. But that was Jay's. It's like basically a Bonham kit, like big 24 kick. I think the toms are 13, 14, and 15. Mm-hmm. They're just massive. And it's just a great sounding kit and can do that vintage vibe. It can also do the rock thing. So me and Jared, the drummer, actually traded. I gave him a guitar and an amp. He gave me the kit.
Nice.
So I still got the kit.
And you got the studio, right?
Yeah, and I was always the one that was into production. So back to the, how I started getting recording gear, we had rented a house to write the 3rd album because some guys were living in Bowling Green still, and some of us were already living down here. So we had to get a halfway point because nobody could agree on where we were going to write. So we got a house in Portland, Tennessee, and we'd go out there 5 days a week from like 3 in the afternoon to like maybe 9, 10 o'clock. And we just got there and jam. And that's how we wrote a lot of stuff back then. It was just, we jammed until we landed on something that felt good. And we'd be like, that's a verse.
Yeah.
And then, okay, where should it go for a chorus? Well, what about this? Sometimes a combination of a few different songs.
Do you feel like we were talking about this, I was talking about this with Justin Francis, the concept of like sometimes we come from, do we come from melody first or lyric first interest in music? I'm one of the people who probably comes from the music, the melody, the rhythm.
Same.
That stuff's always attracted me. But I've really learned to appreciate how some people just really understand. They hear the lyric first and they think that way. I've also learned to acknowledge, like, I can't tell you the number of women that I've met who are like, oh, I know, they just know all the lyrics to stuff. I'm like, how the hell do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know what the lyrics are to
Nah,
that
for
song.
me, it's always the music. Or it might be a title.
Yeah.
Sometimes that'll happen. But usually it's the music first, and I just will stockpile stuff in my head. I kind of do it the old way where, like, if I can't remember it, it wasn't good enough.
And so Matt, singer with in Cage, probably hears. I mean, it's a very melodic the song, so I'm sure he hears the melody. But would he also be somebody like, and how do you think this applies to other artists you work with, who also really loves poetry and is always thinking lyrically?
I was going to say that
compositionally.
Yeah,
like
he's
that.
a huge Dylan fan.
Yeah.
And was constantly writing poetry that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was songs on the first record he didn't have total lyrics to and Jay was about to shit his pants because, he's like, get this done. Like, what are you doing? And then no, I got it. He'd lay down on the floor and
he just figured it out right then and there.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's great. Yeah.
So then so we wrote that album, and then the label or management was like, I don't even think it was Jay. It was like management wanted real demos, and we had never done that because they wanted to sort of cherry pick which songs to focus on. So somehow I convinced them that I should record the demos, and I brought in like an engineer buddy to like kind of assist and get everything set up.
So what'd you do? What was your first studio setup?
They gave me like 10 or 12 grand to like,
This is 2000s.
This would have been 2011-ish.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're deep into Pro Tools world at this point.
Although I was still in Logic back then. I started on Logic, and then I'm a Pro Tools guy now.
Yeah.
But
Logic's pretty cool though.
Yeah, I started on 7, if that shows you.
Right on.
Yeah. So
did you ever used to watch YouTube videos to like learn how to do Logic more? Do you remember a guy named SF Logic Ninja? Do you remember that?
No. Although I have met Gerhard, who started like eMagic before.
Oh wow, yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Well, when I was first making records, Logic was just a MIDI program,
right?
And so and then it was like we were working with a guy, a producer in New York who had a studio, and I was flipping out. I'm like, wait, you've got Pro Tools running, and you've got Logic doing.
Well,
I'd
prefer to do MIDI and Logic. I mean, although the new Logic, it's a little bit foreign to me because just the way it looks,
Yeah. You'll get there, son.
Yeah, that's the difference.
I'm just
the switch
joking.
from
I don't know
Logic
how
to
to do
Pro
it.
Tools was a different story.
Yeah.
But I convinced the label to give me some money to basically buy some gear to be able to do these demos. So
right on.
I bought 2 more Motu 828s, daisy chained 3 of them together, had 24 inputs.
That's awesome.
Already had my 2610. I picked up Phoenix Audio, the DRS8, so it's kind of like an 8-channel, like Neve rip-off kind of thing.
Cool.
The 2 distressors. I feel like there was.
So you got a little 8-channel analog console?
That was just the 8-channel pre.
Just the pre. Okay.
Yeah,
so it's not it's not like you can't. It's not a mixer.
No. It's just pre's. Right. And then I got a UA 4710, the one with the switchable 1176 kind of thing on it. Yeah.
Cool.
And I still have all that to this day.
And so then were you trying to mic up the full band performing all at once?
We did it at my house in Berry Hill on Alberta Street.
What did you end up deciding to do for all your mics and stuff? Here you had already made all these cool sounds, and now you're doing it yourself the first time.
We had a Shure deal. And
so it was a lot of Shure mics.
All Shure.
Yeah.
and so
were you just give me all 57s?
Well, no, they had this package. It was like kind of like a drum package, and
Yeah.
then like some other things. And I asked for an SM7, because Jay was like, that's pretty much the best go-to vocal mic on anybody. If it doesn't work on that, you're not getting it.
I got a SM7J Cage story to share here in a minute.
And so, and then it was funny story about that. So I got all that, and we did it all on those Shure mics and everything. But when we went to go out on tour, like a little bit after that, our tour manager goes, "Yeah, I went to go get the front of house guy went to go get some extra mics from Shure, and he said y'all maxed out the account." And he's like, "Who did that?" And I was like, I don't know. I was like, "Do you want me to bring these KSM 32s on tour?" And he's like,
great.
"Please."
That's great.
And I go, "Just mark them so they come back to me."
Awesome.
So yeah, that's sort of how I started, and then I've just acquired, cherry pick stuff I've liked since then.
Are you ready to launch your career in the audio or entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, right here in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs to prepare you for the industry. From studio production and live sound to audio for film and a whole lot more. You'll learn by doing, working with professional grade gear alongside experienced industry pros. If you're more into the business side of entertainment, SAE's Entertainment Business Program teaches essential basics like contracts and promotion to help you navigate the industry. With diploma, associate, or bachelor's degrees, there's a path for everyone. Plus, Career Services supports graduates as they take the next step. Want to see it for yourself? Immerse yourself in Nashville's exciting music scene and book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Howdy, Rockstars. We're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of the show. And my guest today is Lincoln Parish, joining us here at Ready to Rock Studio. Lincoln, are you ready to jam or rock some more?
I'm ready to jam rock.
I keep joking now that I'm saying the name of the studio, Ready to Rock, and then I'm like, "Are you ready to jam?" I'm like, wait, that's a non sequitur. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm always ready for music.
Yeah. So you mentioned an SM7 a minute ago. So the story that I wanted to share that connects all these dots is I was actually doing a session here with Rick Williams.
Rick Will.
Yeah, a while ago. And he had brought in a band, and we were getting ready to record, and he, we're looking for the vocal sound, and I'm just going through my usual things. And he mentioned you guys doing the SM7 with Jay.
Did he try to take a percentage?
No, I don't know. I was out of that. There was no equation for me, so I didn't have to worry about that. But but it was like about, it was basically just passed on the idea from Jay, which was put the SM7 in, gain it up, and then take the input knob on the 1176 and just dime it all the way.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I ever did that. And I was like, holy shit, now it's this great secret weapon sound I've got up my sleeve.
And I think he got it from T-Bone. From the Bringing Down the Horse record when Jay played guitar on that.
That's great.
I think that was my understanding of it.
And it's so funny. I mean, it's all the same. We're all using a lot of the same stuff. It's just somebody comes along and says like, oh, let me do that all the wrong way. And then everybody's like, oh my God, that was a secret.
Yeah, I was working with one engineer one time in a studio, and I was like, yeah, I want this like direct fuzz just blown out for this guitar part. And he kept dialing it in, and every time it would start to clip, he'd
back it off,
and I just like, I was like, that's not it. And then I just said, I was like,
turn it all up.
I was like, just jank it all the way up. And he's like, it's just gonna be blocked out. And I said, that's what I want.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've done a direct guitar through a 1073, right? And
oh yeah,
dimed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember when you first discovered that?
I mean, with Jay, yeah. That was the first time I'd seen it done, and it was like, sounds like the biggest fuzz ever.
yeah, and it's so fascinating. There's it's like it's just a good reminder. I've even discovered that like even just like completely blasting a Pro Tools track so that the input and output of the converters and the track itself is redlined, like that can be a sound.
Right. I love how I think I saw in a TLA interview one time where he was saying, he goes, I just don't pay attention to the VU meters.
Right.
He's like, if it's hitting him hard, but it sounds good, he's like, that's all I care about.
Well, that's what happened. We went to go mix a record with him.
Yeah.
Back in '99, I think it was.
Nice.
And sure enough, we got there and we had done that. We'd done all these careful transfers of everything. I think we had to transfer we had to transfer from Pro Tools to the Sony Sonar 48, I think.
Oh, okay.
And then he was transferring it in, and it was hitting the console and going. And I saw like red lights. I was like, oh, shouldn't we? And I was all like, are we sure we should be going through, like, we're just going analog in? Or shouldn't we do digital and not all this stuff you think you've learned as a student?
All the rules go out the window. There aren't,
he was like, that shit doesn't matter. And he was getting annoyed too. But
I always say, if it sounds good, it's good.
Yeah.
You know?
And it did sound good when he was mixing.
And I always say, like, if you have a band or an artist, and usually the artist, whether it's their band or we've brought in a group of musicians, everybody in that room has earned their right in that room.
Right.
And I respect and hope that everybody else has mutual respect for me as well, that, like, we can all, like, look at each other and, like, generally everybody's feedback is like, yeah, that was the right call, or no, it wasn't. And I'm very much a big believer in, like, try every idea, totally. We can only spend 15 minutes on it, but let's try it, and if it works, it might be that one tie or that one thread that really brings everything together. And if it doesn't, then you've only wasted 15 minutes and, that's it. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's smart. I mean, and do you ever find that sometimes, like, not everybody agrees whether it sounds good or not? Or do you feel like there's often a way to get everybody to arrive at the same conclusion?
A little bit of both. For me, I'll always, if somebody looks at me or if have a disagreement with, say, the artist or the band, which generally I always say, the band, like, the client's right, but sometimes, not.
Yeah, right.
But I always say it like this, like, look, you guys are paying me to do my job. Here's my opinion. Take it as you will. I'm not saying it's the law, but if you disagree with me, like, I'm not going to, like, get in a fight with you over it.
Right.
Like, and if that's how you want it, then cool. Yeah. But I would voice why I feel the way I feel about it. So it's off my chest and I've said my piece, and then, generally everybody can move on. And then a lot of times they'll come back the next day and be like, man, you're right. Like, can we go back to how it was on this other thing? And so, you just sometimes got to let people work through things on their own, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's that same, I mean, that goes back to that point you were making earlier of, like, even Jay recognizing don't overproduce the band, because that's how you guys can play it on the stage. It's going to be more effective if we make a great sounding record that sounds like what you guys do out there anyway.
Right.
Well, so tell us about your studio now. So now you've come all this way and you've settled in with a great studio and making records and doing what you do now. So tell us all about that.
So it started off in my house, and I was recording I've been in 2 houses since then, but every studio I had up until last year was always in my house or basement. Mm-hmm. And love making records that way, and still feel very comfortable doing a record in a house. And it's honestly a little more cozy. Yeah. But I had some really bad storm damage in beginning of, I guess it was 23 or 24. Yeah, 24. And like, rain and windstorm got my roof one week, and then a week later we had a crazy ice storm and busted 2 pipes up and downstairs.
Welcome to Nashville.
Yep. And insurance came in and was like, your house is unlivable, and basically you got to move out. And, this huge insurance claim, and so...
And lost studio stuff too.
Well, I didn't lose any gear. All my gear was good. I just lost the space.
Okay.
Because I didn't. And so I reached out just through happenstance. And have been really good friends with producer Marty Fredrickson. And he's done Aerosmith, Ozzy, Foreigner, all kinds of stuff. Very much a big mentor to me to this day. And I don't know what I'd do without the guy. So I happened to call him about, we just hadn't caught up in a minute. So he calls me one day just randomly while all this is going on. And I'm literally running around my house like, what am I going to do with all my guitars and amps? Like, I need somewhere to store these. I was looking up like storage units, all this stuff. And he owns the old Quad, which is now,
right on.
It's called Sienna Recording Studios.
Yeah, we were just talking about Quad recently on the podcast.
And so, and he had always known that there was this corner of the old Harvest side that used to be the old drum booth.
Mm-hmm.
But they had cleared everything out, and there was basically just office desk over there, and nobody was really using that side.
I remember that drum booth.
And and then there's a little vocal booth over to the other side. So, and I had wanted it a few years before, but he was like, well, there's Round Hill's offices above, and you wouldn't be able to make noise until like after 4 or 5. And I was like, well, I'm kind of an early guy. I like to work early. So I was like, that wouldn't really work for me. So anyways, we kind of benched it. Then he calls me out of the blue while this is going on. And I was like, hey man, would it be cool if I just stored my guitars over there and amps and stuff? And I was like, y'all can use them. I want them used. Like, I just need somewhere to put them. Meanwhile, I'm also trying to figure out even just a mobile situation to work, you know, because I was like, how am I going to make money the next 9 months? Because they were telling me like it's going to be a 9-month thing, you know, for you to get your house fixed.
And you hadn't seen my studio yet, so.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, where am I going to go? And so I started off, I was renting this Airbnb for a month and moving all my guitars. And then I'm trying to figure out, I have an API 1608 and, you know, a couple racks outboard geared and some other stuff. And he was just like, we were having dinner one night, me and Marty, and he was like, why don't you just bring it all over to the studio and set it up and put it in that room and like, that'll be your space and like, let's try it out. And here we are a year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half later. So it's me, Marty Fredrickson, this guy, Kyle Odell, and then there's the other side of the Harvest room.
That's the Neve. Although they used to have a Neve in there.
The Neve's
right?
in the A room now.
Oh, it's
they
in the
sold the
A-room.
SSL that was in the A room.
Okay.
So now there's
which used to be a Trident A range.
Now like Gretchen Wilson's got all of her gear in the other side.
Oh, cool.
Which is sort of on like permalone, so to speak.
Right.
And so
how'd you set up your studio space then? Like, let's nerd out on the gear and the setup that works for you. And
I have
and you have access to the big tracking room.
Yeah, so whenever I'm doing a full band thing, we'll rent out the full tracking room on the other side of Harvest. I'll just basically take my hard drive over there, plug in, because everything's so dialed in already over there that like it's a matter of just moving mics and maybe, you know, regaining up some, you know, levels and stuff. So it's very sort of plug in and play. And
so your studio is set up in what was the vocal booth, your control room is?
What was the old drum booth?
Oh, the drum booth. And then there's a big room, and then on the other side of the room or something is
there's another control room.
The control room, and so you just move over to that control room
for like full band stuff, and then we'll usually take it back to my room for like guitar overdubs, keys.
That's cool. That's great.
So yeah, I have my API 1608, and then to the right of that is the credenza with pretty much all the rack stuff that I mentioned. I use sort of do a hybrid mixing setup. So
talk about that if you want.
Yeah, I come out of 15 and 16 of the API, go into the Fusion, and then print back in to Pro Tools.
Okay.
And everything else is mostly in the box. I mean, occasionally I might run
the API is probably great to mix through the 1608.
Yeah, just having the 2-channel. Like I've put it out on the board before, but I'm much more comfortable in the box. And I like the recallability, you know.
Yeah, totally. And then but the console, I mean, I think it's a good reminder for us. The console is still very useful, right? Because you got mic pre's there, you can blend things, you can.
Yeah, I use it more on the front. It's definitely like a front end thing for me, which that's sort of how Marty also approaches like the Neve and the A room. He rarely mixes through it.
Right.
But
and then what kind of things do you find? Like, do you get into routing stuff out, using the console to like send something out to an amp or like re-record it? And
I have like a Fender reverb tank that I might send something through. But to be honest, like I get kind of lazy, and like if it's quicker to, it's like for me, it's like what's the fastest way to the finish line, and how and how can we still win?
Right.
So sometimes if it's going to take me longer to set it up than I can get the idea out, then I might just do it in the box.
I tend to do that too. I mean, I like to keep the music moving forward, but
it is fun to like sit there and like I love to play around with reamping stuff if when I have the time. And
me too. It's almost like I think about it like in the context of when I used to make records, probably. And when you were doing the Cage records, did you ever have a chapter where you could spend a lot of time like looking for sounds and exploring things, or was it always sort of moving forward quickly?
I felt like we spent the most, or Jay spent the most time on the drum sounds.
Right.
Which I also am a big believer in, like, if you don't get the drum sounds right, then
you're in trouble.
You got to get the drums and the bass right. You get that right, then everything else is can be overheard and is a little bit subjective.
Yeah.
But to me, like, even when I was growing up, in the 90s, the first things I would notice about a record were the drums.
Yeah. I mean, people, you'd hear about stories like that about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, recording it.
But I don't think we really fretted over guitar sounds too much. We were, especially me and Brad, were very much into kind of dialing in our own thing. And Jay might tweak the amp or something,
Hey, rock stars, imagine sitting down at your DAW with 165 instruments and over 150,000 sounds to choose from. That's what Complete 15 from Native Instruments delivers, the most powerful creative tool in your studio. Inside, you'll find Contact 8, Massive X, Battery, and Guitar Rig 7 Pro, giving you everything you need to create in any genre. Plus, you'll get inspiring sampled instruments like upright bass and electric keys, along with endless expansions to keep your sound fresh. Whether you're producing hip-hop, scoring films, or creating EDM bangers, Complete 15 has you covered. Pair that with Native Instruments control keyboard and machine hardware, and you get next-level integration that makes music creation fast, fun, and seamless. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. So what are some ways that you like to get a cool drum sound now?
Well, like this Reverend Lee record that I just did, it's kind of like the few people I've played it for, they said it's like sort of like bluegrass rock, but to me it's sort of like 70s country. So we kind of intentionally wanted to go for the super mono thing.
Right.
So a lot of ribbons, and it's most of the drum mics that I'm using on that is just kick, snare, and a little SE VR2 ribbon, kind of low, right in the middle. And
so it's just three. It's just mono overhead on that.
We recorded like the toms and everything else, but like majority of the sounds coming from those three.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I like to move mics around for different sessions. I'm not like leave one thing up and that's it. Like I like to try different, like I think every song calls for, not every song, but every project calls for, I think, a different approach.
That matches the project, yeah.
Yeah, so
for sure.
Some projects I want no bleed or, less bleed, or, if it's a modern thing, and, like this project, it was like, let's embrace the bleed, like so much even so that I was leaving the hall door to where the amp was open so that it would bleed into the drummer. You know what I mean? Like it was purposeful. So yeah, I sort of take it in stride. I do love ribbon mics though.
Yeah. So the SE, that's the Neve Designs, right?
That's not the Neve one, but they do make a Neve one.
Okay. Is that an older mic or is that a more
No, you
more
can still
recent
get it. I think it's called the VR2.
How did you know about that one? Is this just one you had to mess with, or do you have you like acquired a knowledge about all sorts of ribbon mics yet at this point?
So how I got onto that was Reed shipping.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mic, the titanium, the T2.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like a 414 looking thing. I'd really wanted one of those, and I'd hit up Reed to see if he knew somebody at SE, and he hit me up with the lady like info, and so she sent me like a list. So she was like, "Oh, like let me know if there's anything else you want to try, and we'll just send you a package and like pick what you like and keep it, and we'll send you an invoice." And so she sent that, and then these couple of ribbons, and she even actually sent me the Rupert Neve one, and I ended up choosing the cheap little $300 VR2, and I have like 3 of those now because they're so great. And I mean, the stereo imaging on overheads, just even a mono, is just incredible.
That's cool.
Like I mean, you can hear like when a drummer does a tom fill, it's like across the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty wild how like
great thing to get, so that's tricky. The other thing that always perplexed me about how hard it is to get a great stereo image is just a stereo image of the piano or a grand piano.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're playing from high to low, it sounds like it moves gently across the stereo field without losing something in the middle.
Yeah. I always say, like if I'm not sure what to do, less is more.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm a big fan, not for like, if it's like a classical guy coming in to play, like definitely should be stereo mic'd on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
But I love a mono. I love a mono 57 just right over the middle of the baby grand.
So the studio you're in now, it comes with a bunch of instruments too, right? Is there a piano in the studio and all that kind of stuff?
There's a grand and I have a baby grand at my house, which I have a B rig at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I mostly mix at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So, and mostly do all my tracking and writing and sessions at the studio.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the same mix chain set up at the house to where the only difference is I'm coming out of the Phoenix audio for the analog and then going into the SSL Fusion and then back into Pro Tools.
Right on.
But in same speaker setup, I have the Atoms that I've been on for years, a sub, and then what I mostly mix on, I'd say like 80 to 85% of the mix is on these little Aventone mix cubes.
Yeah.
And super low volume.
That's what I do.
And I have the ones I have at the house, so I have like the Argosy Halo desk. And I have these little, I think the Gator makes them. They're just little like tabletop props, and they just kind of prop them right up at ear level, and I have them sitting on the desk.
And do you find it useful to have stereo for the Aventone?
Yeah, that's what I've gotten used to because I've had the other Aventones and stereos since about as long as I've had the console, and I got the console in 2013.
Yeah.
And that was actually Paul Worley's old board.
Oh, right on.
So like the board they cut like Need You Now on and all that stuff.
That's great. He's been on the podcast too. Great. Making great rock records.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Smokestack? No, what's the studio that I'm thinking of? Sorry, Paul.
His place?
Okay, yeah.
I can't remember because he had a place and then I think he closed that place and opened something else.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Well, yeah, ribbon mics are so awesome. I mean, I have a Coles 4038, which I love. I sort of retired it a little bit.
Those are so sensitive, man.
I know. I got sick of having to replace the ribbon, and I was like, this is special.
Well, that and they just pick up like, I mean, you were talking about construction earlier. Like, I mean, they'll pick up the dude mowing the lawn for, that's what's great about being in Siena, now for tracking is it's just, I mean, you can be in there during the worst storm ever and you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
And, all the history, like it's the same room where they cut Harvest Moon, Margaritaville, but Jimmy Buffett, Jackson 5 cut there back in the day. Like, I love that I'm on sort of the 70s side. So all the old like wood paneling and stuff still up. And
oh yeah, I love that stuff too. I mean, that's one of the cool things about Nashville is those kinds of studios exist still, you know?
Yeah.
And I was recently in a mobile studio that was shown to me. It used to be the King Biscuit Flower Hour studio that used to be behind 8th and Douglas, or what's it called?
Douglas Corner.
Douglas Corner.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Getting all my places mixed up. But you walk in, it's just instant 70s vibe. It's like the same treatments on the walls, and it just got that cool smell to.
Yeah.
And it just reminds you of all the old gear.
Oh yeah, and I burn a lot of Nag Champa too. So, and I always did it at my house, and so every time like I have clients who recorded at my place back in the day, they're like, "Oh, this smells like your old studio," and I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So, but no, it's a great vibe over there. I mean, anybody, even if you don't want to work with me, just look up Sienna Recording Studios, and we constantly rent out the A and the what we call Harvest. So, and we rent my room out whenever I'm not there, too. So
right on. So mono drums, and then what about what kind of things do you do, and how often do you have an artist that lets you get like Deja Vu Shake Me Down? That's something that is really intense sounding.
The cannon drum sound.
Yeah, so like that kind of like, the cymbals going crazy, everything's going crazy, but somehow you manage to hold it all together, and you're not getting harshed out. Yeah, it's controlled. So like, what are your thoughts about that, and what have you learned about how to kind of go for that sort of sound and what to watch out for?
Well, the great thing about getting to make 3 records with Jay is I got the best free college you could ever have.
Right.
Just watching him and Jason. And a lot of times I kept my mouth shut and just kind of observed, and was just grateful that I was getting to sit in and see this. And, the one thing I really learned from Jay was like how the movement of a song production should grow, and like dynamically how things should build. And I would say that more than technical stuff, is probably what I learned from him. But yeah, seeing like his little tricks with the cannon drum thing. Like I had a band recently that wanted to do that.
What is the cannon drum thing?
On Shake Me Down, there's like a big drum hit, and it's just like sounds like a gunshot. And it was just actually the way we did that with Jay was it was a toy drum set. And it was like the floor tom, and he had Jared just go in there and like
just whack
it, and then there was just a room mic blown out,
and so you just get this over the top sound.
And a bunch of verb, and there's stuff like that I got to see, and it's like, so when people are like, oh yeah, like how do we get that? I'm like, I don't know, just do this, and like or things like tapping on a kick drum with a mallet to get a heartbeat thing,
right?
That kind of stuff. Like that's stuff that can't be taught. Taking a long PVC pipe and putting a 57 in it and blowing that out, right, and putting that right in front of the kit. It's another.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, that's a cool thing.
I gotta try that one.
You'll hear, if you want to hear kind of what that sounds like. It's on the outro of the song called Teeth.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What was the song called? Tea or Teeth?
Teeth.
Teeth. Okay,
yeah, it's
cool.
it's a Cage song. But then like when I was doing the Lilly Hiatt record.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you about next was Lilly Hiatt.
There's a song I think it's called Move, if I remember correctly. It's been a few years, but I had the drummer just set up her a kick pedal next to this like old flight case that I had for guitar.
Yeah.
And I had her kick that and then like hit the top with the side stick. And that's the whole drum sound for that whole record.
That's
great.
Not
that whole record, but that whole song.
Yeah, there's I don't know if you know the story about Kodachrome, Paul Simon down in Muscle Shoals, but the drum part on that song is the drummer was just playing like a suitcase, the side of a suitcase.
Yeah, that was sort of the vibe.
And it's really fun to discover that you can get these cool sounds out of unexpected things.
Well, like Gizmomadry by Self, you know?
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, so I mean, there are no rules, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's like whatever whatever works.
Well, one of the takeaways for me was just this realization that a microphone is incredibly powerful. The ability to gain something up and record small things but make them sound huge gives you like a lot of musical expression.
I even, if I have the choice to record, if I want a 12-string sound, I'd much rather stack up a few regular 6 strings and then do the high strung stuff. It just sounds so much fatter.
Yeah.
Now sometimes you want the real thin, kind of janky, like 12-string sound, but I've found that doing them separate just sounds so much.
And that's for a strum, really, right?
Yeah.
For a strum, yeah. If you're doing single line stuff, it might still sound really cool.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that, actually.
I haven't done as much single line stuff, but definitely kind of the open, strummy stuff. Yeah. I'm always about like, if I'm going to double something, you got to do something different.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because it's just going to cancel itself out.
Yeah, I mean, as a guitar player, I think you learn that.
Yeah,
you probably learn the hard way. You try and double stuff in the same register, and then you realize it doesn't sound as great.
Yeah, like I'll usually like do the main take where it's like micing around the 12th fret, and then when we go to do the doubles, I'll go in there and like point the mic towards the bridge, the body, where it's like at the hand.
How about just different voicings? Do you mess around with that much?
Sometimes different capos, like positions, and also like sometimes I think you got to make the band put them out of their comfort zone a little bit, to make them like really latch into the song. So, for example, this Reverend Lee project I just did, there was a song that we were going to cut this one day, and I said, the band comes in, I said, all right, so we're going to do the full band version, because it was more of like a full electric and like 2 electrics on that song. And I said, but to start the day, I was like, we're going to do a bluegrass version. And like Marco, the singer, he's like, I don't even know how to play mandolin. I said, you will in an hour. And then like literally it was funny because all the band members are like, what's the G chord on the mandolin? They're like Googling all this stuff. And like, if I didn't think they were talented enough to like figure it out really quick, then I wouldn't have wasted the time, but I knew they were. So they sat down and focused, and like we ended up doing like a 2 mic, just like old school, like bluegrass version of this song first. That actually turned out killer.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, look, even if we don't use it, it's a good just to have for B-side stuff down the road.
Look, when it comes to finishing your music, nothing compares to Isotope Ozone 12. This is a complete mixing and mastering suite of tools with 20 pro modules to shape your sound. You'll find the new bass control for a tight, powerful low end, new unlimiter to restore life to overcompressed tracks, and new stem EQ so you can rebalance vocals and drums and bass without even opening the mix session. And when it's time to make your music loud, the IRC5 Maximizer gives you loud, clean mixes and masters that still sound open and clear. Save time with AI-powered workflows that keep you in the driver's seat. Ozone 12 takes the guesswork out, but you stay in control so your music translates everywhere, from streaming to stage. Go to isotope.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Not to mention, sometimes, you can clip off the beginning of this thing you didn't think you were going to use and becomes the cool intro going into the thing you do use.
And we were talked about doing that too. It's like either maybe it's an outro or something, but yeah. And then it just got them so fired up about it by the time we went to record it, and they already knew the band version, so it like made them lock in that much tighter.
Yeah.
So, and then we got it in like 3 takes.
That's a trip.
So it's sometimes about. And I learned that from Jay too. Is like kind of.
Well, that's the first thing he did to you. He was like, you're playing your guitar too.
Yeah, like, get out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
And
although he's like, get into your comfort zone, sling your guitar down low and rock out a little more, That's cool, man. Let's see, what do I want to ask you about next? How about favorite ways to record a rock vocal? I mean, we covered a little bit of that with the SM7 stuff, but any other things that you've started doing? Like, and have you noticed, depending on what kind of song it is, or tell us more about the Lilly Hiatt the session too, because I don't know if we.
I mean, I love for rock vocal, I'd say like a go-to chain that works on everybody, especially a male rock, would be SM7 into 1073 into 1176. And then maybe an LA2.
Does it matter which 1070 or which 1176 you
I prefer the Blue Stripes, but they're
the old school ones or the
old school ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you messed around with some of the new remakes of, classic gear like that?
I've wanted to get a hold of some of the Audioscape ones to try those out. But they have so many at the studio that it's like, well, I can just go into the room instead of spending $10,000.
That's awesome. And then what about Lilly Hiatt and her vocal?
Her vocal, I think, was U87 from the 80s. And Rockstars, just to describe it, we just jumped from the concept of rock to much more like Americana. Yeah. And, the U87's funny because it's such a beautiful mic and the way that it picks up things, but certain female singers, it's just a little too harsh in that upper mid-range, But I think with her on that record, it was, if I remember correctly, it was U87, and I ran it through the Phoenix instead of the API because I was like, the API was just a little too harsh on her. And then I kind of did a parallel distressor thing. So one hitting it kind of hard and then the other one just kind of doing tapping back like a DB.
Right.
I like to do that a lot. Kind of hit the first one hard and then just catch whatever, and that was a trick I learned from Tom Elmhurst when he was mixing.
Oh, right on. Just two 11s, two distressors in a row.
Well, not distressors. I just didn't, because we cut Lily's record at my house. So I didn't have, those were the only outboard compressors I had. But a lot of times.
So, but what would Tom have suggested? Two 1176s?
He would have done like a Uri 1176 into a CL1B.
Yeah, the 1176 into a tube compressor.
Yeah, he loves the CL1B.
Doing that into an LA2A is a nice combo too.
Yeah. LA2A is one of probably my favorite compressor out there. Yeah,
and it was doing rock stuff with Living Things that, I guess it was after we did the Atrixo record, or no record because it never came out. But that wasn't our fault. That
you still made it.
That's when we explored. I think it was Lillian at the time who was saying, let's do a triple compress thing. And I was like, triple compress. And so I discovered going into an 1176 and then hitting a distressor. I think that was that order. We might have hit the distressor first and then like an LA2A or some kind of tube compressor. And it's a great way to get a really
and if you do it, everything just in small increments and you don't nail it on any, you know what I mean? Just,
and you got to discover it. You got to discover what's going to work.
Yeah.
Too. But it is tricky because when you venture into that territory, there's a big difference between dialing in the sound for yourself where you can tool around with it until you think you hear what you like versus, which is actually tricky to do anyway because you don't really hear it through the headphones, You don't really know what it sounds like until you play it back and you hear it in the speakers versus trying to dial in complex sounds for somebody else, especially a singer where they got to keep singing, can be really tricky. I guess one trick that could help would be to record a vocal without compression right into a mic pre. But even then, the singer's not necessarily going to sing the same way.
Right. Totally. The compressor has such a big part of the, the kind of the, not the slap back, but, the feeling in the head, in the cans and how it, is coming through and how it sits in the mix. And, that was, not to jump around, but that was probably one of the best pieces of mix advice I got from Roger Allen Nichols was years ago, kind of early on in my production, career or whatever. He came over and I was playing him some stuff and I was kind of trying to pick his brain about all these nerdy mix questions. And he's just like, you know what? You just don't need to worry about it. And I was like, what? And then he was like, no, man. He's like, it'll all come with time. He's like, you'll be able to hear things in a couple years that you can't hear right now.
Right.
And it was so right. Like I go back to older mixes that I've done. I'm like, and you're like, why did I do that? And then, some things I'm like, oh, how did I do that? Because I did that because I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah.
And why did I get rid of that piece of gear? That sounded cool.
Yeah. But yeah, there's, you can even incrementally, like I would hit compressors way harder back in the day than what I do now, and just because you can hear what they're doing and
right.
your ears just, I can't explain it. They just get tuned into that.
Yeah. I think you get tuned in, you hear things, but you also begin to recognize that the thing you're hearing is the result of something.
Right.
Which can make it tricky to jump into new stuff that's complex, where you're like, you're hearing something and there's parts that you like and parts you don't like. But if the thing you're using is so complex that it's like, it's hard for you to unravel it. I guess it's the same thing. A compressor seemed really complex at first,
Yeah. I feel like the compressor is the first thing that everybody doesn't know what it does at first. And,
right.
And then down the road, it's like, oh no, it's really clear what it does.
Yeah. I mean, in school, they made it sound like, a compressor controls the dynamics of something. And then you go using the, like you're taking a loud thing and controlling it from being too loud. And then you go use it in the studio and you're like, no, it doesn't. It takes all the quiet stuff that you're not hearing in your mix and it just brings it right up to the front.
Gives it a bunch of low end.
Yeah. It makes everything loud is what it does. You just forgot to mention that you have to crank the output,
Yeah.
And that's what's cool about an 1176 is you're cranking the input gain up into the compression.
Well, and the way they found the coolest tricks. Yeah, and the way they found the coolest tricks with both of those were by just, just diming them out and see what happened.
I think, who is it? We've heard all these great expressions like the 7-up was the name of the...
the 7-up setting.
Yeah, 7-up setting, which I think had just... I don't even remember what the deal was.
That's like the 10 and 2, I think.
Right,
on the attack and the release.
Yeah, and that's usually what I do by default anyway, is same. Like the starting place.
Yeah, I like to start with a slow attack and then slowly see where we're at.
Yeah. All right, got anything more to say about condenser mics versus dynamics? To you?
They're all great. I mean,
we're all great.
Yeah, I mean, it's all subjective. It's like depends on the source, right?
What about distortion? If you're going to distort stuff and get kind of extreme, do you find one mic responds differently to another?
Yeah, but I feel like the things I'm distorting out the most are probably like 57s.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like an SM7 on a rock vocal, but like more dynamic stuff, not so much.
Right.
Although like I will throw distortion on overheads quite a bit.
How do you do that? And what's the purpose of that? How does that work?
Just to kind of get that like sort of Hendrixy, like Mitch Mitchell sort of thing, and like think if it's done like there's been times where like sometimes solo up the overheads and they're just like, but then blend it in, it's like that's sort of like that chaotic controlled like overhead thing that you were talking about with Jay with the cymbals, so
it's sort of like going crazy with it with the distortion or compression, and then just not like
I won't do it on the compressor, right? I'll do it like usually I'll do it on like Decapitator.
Okay,
so that way I have
you're
the
blending
option.
That into the overheads, and it's just sort of
makes
it all feel more manageable.
But I was producing this band a few months ago where we were doing like this Hendrixy sort of crosstown traffic vibe, and I had 3 mics on the overheads because I always do 2 stereo and 1 mono just to have the options. And on the mono, I had the stereos distorted, and then on the mono I had a phaser running on it.
Right on.
And so
that sounds fun.
And and I'll do I like doing stuff like putting a little slap on the overhead, or sometimes even longer than a slap. Like there's a song called "Scream" on the Lilly Hiatt record that's sort of got this real muted kind of dead drum sound, and the snare kind of trickles out, and Yeah, I probably messed with that drum sound for like 3 days. But yeah, just dialing in this delay just right with the snare and the overheads. And yeah, I like to get funky with it whenever I'm given the liberty. Sometimes you got to stay within the tracks.
Stay within the bounds. Yeah. And there's also that difference between
what's the style?
The liberties you can take at the creation, the recording stage versus the liberties you can take in the mixing stage. Because at the mixing stage, the recording might really wish you had taken some liberties in the mixing stage, or maybe the recording knew what it was doing and the mix doesn't need to try and change,
Yeah, a lot. Well, with the distortion stuff on like the overheads, usually I'll do it when we're tracking. I'll just put the plug-in on and I'll make sure obviously the signal's clean before that in case I want to just take it off. But
yeah.
Generally, and I feel like that just adds more of the vibe. I feel like if you can get as close to like the mix as the band's going down, then like they're stoked,
Yeah, totally.
So,
all right. Well, let me jump to some of our jam session questions here. When you were starting out in making records and stuff like that, I want to make sure I ask this too. But when you were starting out with this stuff, what do you feel like was kind of holding you back at the start?
Knowledge.
Just
and firsthand experience of like I said, I feel like I learned everything by doing it the wrong way first, and then reverse engineering that into how do I do this the right way. But I've always been a sponge, and like I've never thought I was right. I'm like, I always feel like I'm never gonna know, enough for everything, and like. So anytime I can like pick up a little piece of something, like I learned how important automation was because I got to sit in a session with Ryan Hewitt, and he automates everything, literally almost every single track.
It's automation,
and then
like actual riding the fader kind of automation.
Oh yeah, on every single thing, and I did that on the Lilly Hiatt album, and it was
even the individual mics within a drum kit.
Oh yeah,
wow.
Like he'll go through with the kick drum and the snare and everything, and because I'd done a project, I'd produced a solo record for Kyle Cook from Matchbox 20, and Ryan was mixing it, so I got to sit in on some of the mix sessions and got to see his process. And,
that's great.
And so then when I went to do the Lilly record, I automated every track, and it made a huge difference. So like I'm a big believer in automation now.
That's cool. I mean, it's
and less is more too.
Because you got to do. You mean less movements can go a long way too?
Well, no, I mean like less is more. Like start
just in general.
Well, yeah, like start with a good. When I'm kind of setting up a mix, I do my mix prep where I'll kind of consolidate things down. Try to get it as small as like have as less stuff to deal with as possible, and then then automate stuff from there and just get a good blend because not everything needs to be EQ'd. And so, like, I kind of get the blend right because, I think Tom Elmhurst said one time, he was like, he goes, mix engineers back in the day were just called balance engineers.
Yeah.
And like back then it was all like left, right, center, bright or dark. Those were your options. And so, like, I feel like now, as much as I love, Pro Q3 is one of my favorite plugins, but like you can, if your EQ starts to look like the stock market, you're probably not doing something right. You know what I mean?
That's great, man. I love that.
So, I kind of think the less is more, tends to work.
Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift for you to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding a lot more like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins and Pro Tools. And the best part is these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. How about some of the best advice you remember receiving along the way? You've obviously shared a lot already.
I'm trying to think. obviously what Roger said about the mixing.
How about just as a guitar player?
That's tough. I can't think of like one thing.
If it comes back to you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not.
How about something that's like a favorite hardware tool or piece of gear that you like having in the studio right now?
One of my favorite pre's of all time, it'd be a 2610. If you just gave me 8 of those, I'd make a whole record off
that's
just
the universal audio.
Yeah.
That's the 610 on either side?
Yeah, that's the one with it on both sides.
Yeah, which is modeled after the original
Putnam console.
Yeah.
I think that was like such a great console. And I love that. I'm definitely one, like, the least amount of knobs, I prefer that.
Yeah.
The more knobs I see, my brain gets scrambled eggs, so.
Nice. How about a favorite or software or plugin that or just something you're excited about at the moment?
New plugin. Well, pretty much all the Plugin Alliance stuff is just it's really great. And I've got their like whatever the bundle is. And
have you tried the Basement plugin?
That
was kind of a fun discovery for me. It'll give you that, sneak in that sub content.
So I just used one, and I don't know if it was a Waves called Submarine.
Right.
And it was a little sub thing. And I actually put it on an acoustic guitar yesterday that was sounding too thin. And
Sweet.
And you had to be real careful with it. But if you just found the sweet spot, it worked. I mean, and then I kind of A/B'd it with the Pultec, whatever, the EQP1.
Right.
And I ended up choosing the Submarine because it was kind of giving me more. And in the mix, like when I soloed it up, I was like, I think it's too subby. But then in the mix, it just was fine.
Yeah, well, it's a good reminder that it's one of the reasons why we can't solo stuff against mixes is because when everything's in there, the whole mix to bus chain is responding differently at times. It's not just when we first hear that idea, I think we think about it in terms of it's in or it's out, and everything's like, I don't know.
Well, it's all moving together, and like when I'm mixing stuff for clients and I get mix notes, and if something's like they want a big jump in something, I'm like,
you won't really hear it. It's just going to hit the compressor. It's going to make everything else go down or something.
I had a mix note a few weeks ago. It's like, we want the vocal up 1 dB and the band and the music down 2. And I was like, so really you just want the vocal up 2 dB.
Right.
So that's all I did.
3.
Yeah, whatever the math
was. Dun.
Yeah. But so I just basically turned the vocal up 2 dB and didn't touch the music because it's like, well, it's all moving together. And sometimes it's like you start moving one piece of furniture, then you're going to want to move the other chair in the room to another spot. And, it just starts moving furniture around the room.
You're just tripping over furniture.
Yeah. So it's sort of like a living organism. You know what I mean? One thing moves and it changes.
Well, it's also just the compression. The compression and limiting, just everything responds differently depending on how things are hitting it.
Yeah, and I try to until closer to the end of the mix, I try to just keep only like one stereo bus compressor, which is usually like a Fairchild 670.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you dig mixing through the 670?
I love it.
That's cool.
It's my favorite.
Have you ever mixed through an actual 670?
I wish.
I've done it before. It was a lot of fun. Smallberg was the song we did for the Spinto band, and we actually rented one and mixed through it.
Yeah, I like to do it just like I just try to stay in like the -1 to 2.
Yeah, you really hear it if you start moving that needle much. You really hear it.
So I don't want to hear it pumping. Yeah,
but it's cool to move the needle on individual instruments.
And it just really pushes everything forward through the speakers. I feel like
How about a resource or a tip for the business side of running a studio? And the thing that I thought I would bring up is your website. It looks great.
Thanks. My sister did that.
Oh, it looks really great. And
if anybody ever needs a web design person, hit me up.
Yeah, you've got like the homepage, the about, music services, portfolio, pricing. You put everything out there in contact. But if there's more to talk about that, feel free to say so. If there's anything else that you feel like is worth sharing regarding just tip or advice on the business side of professionally now.
I would say, like, it's funny because I feel like when I got into music production, I thought it was all technical.
Right.
I thought it was all turning knobs and tones and that is a huge part of it. But I feel like all that stuff is now secondary to like what I'm really doing, and the other part's almost more mental and like approach. It's about, I try to, when I'm take on a project that I'm going to produce, I don't like to just step in the studio with the artist after one meeting. Like, I have a project coming up middle of the month that like, I'm like, look, I need to have like 3 meetings like with these girls because for me to do my job the best, I need to think what they're thinking before they think it.
Right.
And so like, I constantly want to be in the artist's head, not in a bad way, but I know what you're going to say before you say it. So I'm not going to go there, or I will go there because I know that that's what you're going to want.
Right.
And you get that even with mixing. It's like you get through one mix with an artist that you're working for, and then you're like, oh, after you get through one thing in notes, you're like, I know they like their vocal a little louder or, a little more tucked in the mix. So you mix towards that, and so I try to produce towards that, so like, a lot of it is like getting to know the artist. And like, so when I first started, I thought it's like production's one thing, and then it sort of turned into this thing that, and I will say this, nowadays, my advice to like younger people is like, do anything and everything. Take on whatever. I still play guitar on projects. I mix projects I didn't record or produce. I even do some consulting stuff on the side. I always say like 10, 15 years ago, and as you know, like then you could just be like, oh, I'm just a guitar player, or I'm just a producer or whatever. But nowadays it's like you have to be multifaceted. And if you're not, then, you're kind of missing out, and like and not just like monetarily, but like you can grow just by like I've started playing out around town with kind of side project bands for fun, just because like that helps keep my chops up in a different way that, because I play guitar on records almost every day still, but like there's a big difference between just playing the verse and just
and then forgetting how it went.
Yeah, nailing one part in the verse, and then you're like, all right, now I'm going to go play this part in the chorus, and like you're kind of punching in all over the place.
Yeah.
Whereas like, there's no redos live, so it's all just being a sponge and doing everything and doing things you don't want to do, or if you would have told me 10, 15 years ago that I'd be producing country now, I'd say get out of the room. But here we are. But the country that I am producing is stuff that I enjoy. So like,
well, wasn't that Jay's story?
Jay's. He still might hate Music Row, but I remember being in his basement. He just despised it.
Well, he was in a rock band. What was the
Iodine, and then In Pursuit was before that.
Right, and then I guess he made a lot of less country-ish records for a while.
And he had a band called Bedlam.
Yeah.
And he worked with engineer Rick Will.
Right.
For a long time.
Right. And then I think now he's more recently he gets calls to do country records all the time.
Oh,
or I don't know about all the time.
Yeah.
The balances.
I think he's working on some. I know it's like country rock, country. But which to me that's the dream, because I get bored easily. So like, if I finish a country thing, then I hope the next thing I do is a rock thing.
Right.
Because then it's like, all right. Like,
I like to change it up too. It also keeps us out of that one setup.
Copy paste
kind of stuff. All right. So here's a question I like to ask all of our guests on the podcast. You get to it's hypothetical. You get to go back in time and find your your younger self? I don't know how far you have to go back. Maybe 2011. Maybe
last
maybe
year.
earlier. Maybe last year. And you say, look, dude, I've come back to give you this one bit of advice. Here's the single most important thing you should know about being a rock star of the studio yourself. What advice would you like to go give yourself if you could?
It'd be pick your battles.
Pick your battles.
Yeah. When I was younger, I was a little more fired up, so to speak. And I've calmed down a lot over the last several years. And, you pick the things that are worth fighting for and that you believe in, and certain things you just got to let go. Mm-hmm. And, that would be the biggest piece of advice I would give to my younger self, not even just in the studio, but in life too. But definitely in the studio, yeah, I was a little more wilder back then, and
that's great.
Slightly more unhinged.
There's a lot of power in picking your battles.
Yeah, and knowing when's the right time.
When to do something. I mean, it goes for a guitar solo, right?
Exactly.
It's like, pick your battles in the arrangement of this song.
Totally. And yeah.
Pick your moment where you're playing all those extra notes on the guitar in between when the vocal is just singing, and then when the vocal's singing, you're not playing the extra notes.
My favorite quote for a guitar player in the studio that's overplaying is always telling them, it's like, look, man, you're not getting paid by the note. I was like, you can play 1,000 or you can play 3 and you're still going to get paid the same. So
that's great.
And for me, I'm lean towards melody. So
yeah,
I'd much rather go towards a part that is a hook than just trying to fit 1,000 notes in a bar.
Well, and you only had one string on your guitar, so the only way you could play more than one note was to play a melody to get there. So you had to learn melody first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Dude, awesome to have you on the show,
dude,
man. Thanks
thank you
so
much.
It was fun to hang out with you. Let the rock stars know, how can they go find out more about you? You go to your website, contact you. What if they just want to make a great sounding record?
Yeah, you can hit me up. Instagram's probably the thing I'm on the most, but so I'm Instagram at Lincoln Parish 90, just one R in Parish. My website is lincolnparishmusic.com, and then I think that's it. Cool. You can go see my credits, which will be listed on in my Instagram, like link
right
thing.
Yeah, and I think on the website you've also got discography or something.
Yeah, with Muso AI.
That's great.
So yeah.
Rock stars, thank you so much for hanging with us and watching and listening today. If you're watching us, then please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And, very importantly too, drop a comment in and just say something about the show. Just say,
please be nice.
Yeah. Be nice. Don't be nice. It doesn't, actually, it all helps the channel. So it'll help more people get to see the video and see the next video. And, funny thing about stuff like that is even if somebody drops in a comment about how they didn't like it and it helps a video,
that's
for example, then there's somebody who did like it gets to see it. So
right.
it all works out, man,
Well, I'd love to be back if, I feel like we just kind of cracked the
we just got to crack the surface.
Yeah,
totally, man. Totally. We got lots of work to do, man.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff. Dude, thanks for hanging with us, man.
Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to meet you, and which we met briefly that one time, but this is really the time we met. So
yeah, for sure.
Thanks for coming, man.
Likewise.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our fantastic sponsors who help make this episode possible. Isotope, Native Instruments, Atom Audio, SAE Institute, Spectra 1964, and Picker. And remember to take advantage of our special coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off at isotope.com and nativeinstruments.com for any plugin purchase. Don't forget, you can start mixing right now with my free course Mixmaster Bundle. You'll find the link in the show notes below. And if you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors also in those links in the show notes. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They are going to help you make your best record ever. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this, it's a great way to help support the show, and I really appreciate it, and I thank you as well. I'd also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars: Vlad Weselchenko, Jeffrey Simmons, and Max Young. Thank you so much for watching and listening, Rockstars, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.